Okay, so are you ready for this?
Always, let's do it.
All right, cool. Today we're going to do a deep dive into something I think we can all relate to, at least a little bit. Procrastination.
Ugh, procrastination. The struggle is real.
Seriously. So we've got some excerpts here from an article, Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator. And let me tell you, this one hit close to home for me.
I was nodding along with pretty much every word, too.
Yeah, so like right off the bat, the article talks about this whole tomorrow self-illusion thing. And honestly, it's kind of freaky how accurate it is.
Right. It's like
Why?
we all have this like fantasy version of ourselves living in the future,
Hmm.
right? And they're going to be so on top of everything, so productive, like nothing like our current messy selves.
It's like our future self is going to wake up at 6 to 4 a.m. every day, hit the gym, eat healthy, and be like super successful and totally stress-free.
Right. And we totally buy into it. Like our brain is convinced that this future self is a separate entity, a better version of us with unlimited willpower and motivation.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. That's why we tell ourselves stuff like, okay, tomorrow I'm going on that diet, or next week I'm going to start that project, but then tomorrow rolls around, and our future self is exactly the same as our present self, just as likely to procrastinate.
Exactly. That's the illusion, right? We think we'll change, but our future selves are usually just as, well, human as we are now. And it's not just anecdotal. There's actually a whole psychological principle behind it, you know?
Oh, really? Like this tomorrow self-illusion is actually like a thing.
Totally. It ties into something called temporal discounting. Basically, our brains are hardwired to choose immediate rewards over future ones, even if those future rewards are like way better in the long run.
So it's kind of like how I'd rather eat this delicious cookie right now than wait a week for, I don't know, a slightly healthier version.
Exactly. Your brain's like, give me the cookie now.
Right.
And that's how we end up procrastinating. We choose the immediate gratification of, avoiding a difficult task or putting off a responsibility, even though we know it's going to bite us in the butt later on.
And the later it gets, the bigger that bite becomes.
Oh, absolutely. But, it's not just our messed up sense of time that's the issue here.
What do you mean?
Well, the article dives into this too. Procrastination often has these like deep-seated emotional roots. It's like a coping mechanism
A
almost.
coping mechanism to avoid doing work.
In a way, yeah, we put things off not just because we're lazy or whatever, but because we're trying to avoid facing those negative emotions that are tied to the task itself. Maybe it's the fear of failing or the anxiety about like living up to expectations or even just like the sheer dread of doing something super boring.
Makes sense. So like, you know that giant presentation is looming over you, and instead of tackling it, you're like, you know what? I really need to reorganize my desk drawers right now.
Exactly. Procrastination becomes this way to hit the pause button on those icky feelings.
Yeah, but I mean, doesn't ignoring those feelings just make them like way worse in the end?
That's the thing about procrastination, right? It often creates this vicious cycle. So you put something off, then you feel guilty and stressed about it, and then that makes you even more likely to avoid it, and the cycle just keeps spinning. It's like this procrastination monster just gets bigger and bigger.
And the only way to stop it is to face it head on.
Hmm.
So it's really not just about, finding the perfect to-do list app or becoming some kind of productivity guru.
Nope, it's much deeper than that. If you really want to break the cycle, you got to address the emotional stuff too. The article even talks about how, we need to practice a little self-compassion.
I think that's a tough one for a lot of people, though.
Definitely. But beating yourself up for procrastinating in the past is just going to keep you stuck. It's much more effective to focus on building healthier habits. And to do that, you got to, understand why you're procrastinating in the first place.
Okay, so how do we do that? Like, where do we even begin to untangle all of this?
Well, there's a strategy mentioned in the article, and it's actually pretty simple. It's called implementation intentions.
Implementation intentions. Okay, that sounds intimidating. What is that?
Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Basically, it means that you make like very specific plans in advance. So instead of just saying, I'll work out tomorrow, you actually set a very specific plan, like when my alarm goes off at 7 a.m., I'm going to put on my workout clothes and immediately go for a run.
Oh, I get it. So instead of relying on willpower, which we've already established is like a flaky friend at best.
Exactly. We create this concrete plan that links a specific cue, like your alarm going off, with the desired action, like going for that run.
And that makes you more likely to actually do it.
It's surprisingly effective, and there's a ton of research to back it up. By making those decisions in advance, you're much less likely to give in to those temptations or get sidetracked because it's already decided. You're just following through on a plan you made earlier.
I like it. It's like tricking your brain into being productive.
Exactly. But I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that procrastination is way more complex than we often give it credit for. It's not just laziness or a lack of discipline. It's really about our relationship with time, how we manage our emotions, even how we see ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, this whole conversation has been a real eye-opener for sure. Yeah, it really reframes procrastination, doesn't it?
It does. And the best part is once you understand the why behind your procrastination, you're way more likely to overcome it.
So, to everyone listening, I want you to think about something you've been putting off, maybe for days, weeks, months, maybe even years. And now, think about how you feel when you think about that task. What emotions come up for you? Are you worried about failing? Are you scared of actually succeeding? Or, hey, maybe it's just a boring task. Dig a little deeper here. See if you can pinpoint those feelings, because understanding that connection might just be the key to finally tackling that thing and getting it off your to-do list. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.